So have my friend Emily Franchett here today. Much like many of the guests that I've had on this show, Emily was a part of the sort of movement in my soul as I was talking with her and Cassidy and Phil and Heather and these other folks that I've had on the show. It was, always like, I wish I would have recorded that conversation. Emily and I were just chatting, cutting it up before we started recording about how I wish our first meetup was recorded, because that was where I started to really have my mind blown about how internal design, I'm sorry, what is it?
Interior
Interior
design.
interior design
Hey,
can
we
really
could
brighten
we
up
could take it there. We could take it to internal design. Like if we
internal
really
design.
want to
That's
get
right.
meta, like
Absolutely. Maybe
yes.
we'll go there. So,
Yeah.
hey, Emily, welcome to the show. So glad to have you here. Why don't you just kind of tell everybody, who you are, what you do, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, seriously, thank you so much. Like you have just amazing guests on this show. You have just the most profound conversations. So I'm honestly just grateful to like be here and feel honored to be a part of this. I'm an interior designer, artist by trade and really artist through life. And I try to carry that over into design. I'm self-made, if you will. I didn't go to school for interior design, don't have the traditional interior design background, but um I like to think that, that kind of gives me an edge in the industry. And yeah, I'm just here to help people create homes that make them feel good and to carry over in the rest of their life.
Absolutely. I love that how you said, I want to help people create homes that make them feel good. What does that mean? How do you do that with your clients? A home that
Yeah,
makes you feel good. Generally assumed if I buy a house, like it's going to be one that I want, right? But
right.
as we've learned, like if you've lived some life and bought a house or even rented places, like that takes work. So how do you get help folks and help your clients get to loving where they're at?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me, the number one question that I ask, and it's really funny, it really seems to stump people. I'm always like, okay, I really want to come at this. How do you want your house or to like feel? What is the feeling you want when you like walk into this space or you spend time in this space? And and I'm talking from like your living room to your kitchen to your bathroom to even your closet, like every inch of your home affects you mentally and emotionally, whether you're conscious of it or not. And so I think that's really where I want to come from and really talk through those spaces of like, okay, what are your pain points right now? What is your ideal situation to be in? And that goes into, shape of design, color, I mean, artwork, all the fun details, like everything that you touch is important. And so that's really what I believe in and try to take in with my clients.
That was so cool. So you start with a feeling, which is
Yeah.
usually just, very kind of like, I think perceived as intangible and all that. But we know that feelings, they show up like, if we follow like the top leading psychologists, we know that feelings show up in the body, right? And
Yeah.
feelings show up in people's homes too. I feel like that's
Mhm.
kind of like a meta point I just made there. So you start with the feeling. What are your clients, most of your clients, what are they feeling? And do you feel like you have a pretty good pulse on what the main, I guess, symptoms of unhappiness are with a home? uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
like what do you see? What how do people feel usually when you ask them that question?
So honestly, there's usually a long pause. Most people are like honestly haven't even thought about it. So I really try to open that conversation to get them to actually think about it. But the biggest thing that I see is calming. People want to feel a sense of serenity. I mean, we live in a crazy, you know, stimulating world. And so when it comes to your home, I feel like people are leaning more into the feeling it like it's a haven and I want to feel calm and at ease. So that's the biggest thing. And I think that comes from, not only being organized and having the things that you absolutely love in your space and getting rid of the no nonsense, but it also comes from color, shape of design, feel of texture. Like, I mean, as weird as it sounds, it's like a piece of art. Like I really look at homes like a piece of art. It's not complete unless there's a variety of texture, color, shape, and however you go about that is what makes it your own. So, yeah.
Uh, it just I got hit with this just now because I've watched some of your reels lately. You did this insane looking painting on somebody's cabinet. I forgot, seriously, I feel like I'm doing it an injustice by calling it that. You also redid you did a design on somebody's hoods in their kitchen, and
Hmm.
those are the points where I can see like literally you have hand painting, and that's something that you do as well that I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I might be wrong, but you know, your average interior designer is not going to offer that, right? They're not going to
Right.
say, "Do you want me to paint this wall? Would you
Yeah.
like me to put, get a festive painting on your hoods?" Like I just feel like the fact that you are able to take art and make it into design, and then that will help people feel better about their space, like that is a skill. I don't know that you can truly teach that in school. I know there's concepts and there's principles, and then there's the wild where all this stuff
Yeah.
happens,
I like to
right?
live in the wild, that's for sure.
Hell yeah, you do. Yeah, hell yeah, you do. And you do. Like, and that
Yes.
comes through in everything that you do, you know. I see you as somebody who is very much like, open to learning how to do something differently. You're always looking for new ways to do things. You also have this ability to say, we're overcomplicating this. We need to get back down to how does this make you feel? Let's use that as the true north of design. Um, where did this all start, right? Because I know a little bit about your background. I'm not going to do any spoiler alerts here. You are an artist first, right? And
Yeah.
where did you start to say in your genesis, like, I want to start helping people with this?
Um, that's a great question. Really, I think it was really like halfway through college, I kind of realized, oh, this is the path I should have taken. One of those like aha moments of, because like I've always been interested in it from a design standpoint, from an art standpoint. But then I think like halfway through college, I had been working with a senior relocation company. At least that's kind of what I call it. We basically helped more so elderly people like downsize or move into retirement communities. And I really saw the effect that the space had on them, and just how having someone to assist them in that and to like set up their home to make them comfortable, to make them happy, to make them feel at ease, I think was when I really started to notice like, oh, this is something that I can do for people. And I just didn't know how. So I think that's why it took me so long. I mean, I say it took me so long. I was still only like 26 when I started my business. So I'm still very young and green in the industry. That's for sure. But I definitely think like mid college, working with those people and just seeing like the effect that it had on them was huge. And I mean, I remind myself that too often of how your physical space around you really affects you.
Absolutely. And I definitely can understand that as well. Like you have these some people call that your conversion story, right? Where you have this moment where you're like, gosh, I really think I want to do this. Everyone that's been on this show actually, they kind of remember the first day or the year or whatever where
Hmm.
they had that aha moment. What were you studying in college at the time? Very curious about that.
Yeah, so I got my BFA. So I studied painting. It
Okay.
always feels so silly to say, but
Bachelor's of Fine Arts, right?
yes, yeah,
Okay,
with
got it.
and
Got it.
then so when you get a BFA, you generally have an emphasis. So it's like the media of art that you're choosing to study. And I chose painting. And obviously within that, you take sculpture, you take different types of painting, you take color theory. Like there's so much that goes into all of that. And I love that I went that route because I see myself being able to use all that in my day to day and when it comes to interior design. So that's why I say I'm an artist first. Like I'm an artist by trade, but an interior designer by choice. So
Yeah.
yeah, I try to like feed the two into each other for sure.
Very interesting. I love how you got those
Hmm.
foundational principles. Speaking of those principles and those things that you learn and how you bring them in. So, color theory, I'm a huge fan. I remember when you delivered a presentation to our group about that, you had
Mhm.
me and everyone in that room thinking about what we were wearing at that time. I think
Yeah.
really we were thinking about the colors we were wearing, right? And like,
Yeah.
meanwhile, you're up at the front of the room and you're rocking your red Converse. You've got, you got your red accents. I wore this in your honor. It looks like orange in the camera, but this is my little Chiefs red band in honor of
I love it.
Emily. But like
Yes.
color theory, right? Can you explain what that is? And maybe while you're on that line, like everything else that you kind of like learn in your BFA and how that applies to interior design. I think that'd be really interesting for people to
Yeah,
hear.
yeah, for sure. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't need to go like crazy far into it because it's like
sure.
one of those endless spirals. But at the end of the day, color theory, when I learned about it in school, it was mostly how colors related to each other and how, one color can look different next to two different colors. So I learned a lot about color theory from a visual standpoint in college. And then afterwards, I learned more about the psychology of color more so, which is comes into the how does this make you feel? And I mean, this is something that's been around for centuries and like color is a staple of like human society and civilization. So like red, for instance, is definitely like a power color. It's energy, it's joyful, it can be chaotic, but it was generally used from like definitely in China, it was, the ancient dynasty, red was like the color of royalty and stuff like that. So, I mean, color theory goes back before we can even fathom to think about.
Before has even been documented, I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And then obviously anthropologists and scientists and artists over time were able to make those connections. And so now I don't try to simplify it, but I try to use that to like help guide people in the direction. It's like, okay, well, how do you want this room to make you feel? Well, greens and blues are generally more calming, whereas yellows and reds are a little more energetic. And, there's so many different associations. And like I said, it could be like a whole spiral because you get into the shades of green. Well, like a forest green is going to make you feel different than a sage green. So there's like a lot of nuance to it. So I try to just use that more so as a guide to get my clients in the right direction. And I mean, what is life without color? It's not a thing. So,
Yeah, and
yeah, as
very
you can tell,
interesting.
I'm rocking like my power red today. My
Hell
phone
yeah.
case is red, my water bottle's red. It just, yeah, it's a power color. Yeah.
It is. So what do you do? I just think about this. Like I imagine the not the fights, but the conversations that could ensue when somebody's favorite color probably isn't the good color for their house,
For
for
their
their
house. Yeah.
couches. Like,
Yeah.
what do you do? How do you do that and say like, look, I understand it's your fit. If you go to a box of Crayola crayons, that's the first color you're gonna pick, but
I
like
love that.
doing your whole room in it, like how do you
Yeah.
do that with your clients? Like, what have you ever gotten any moments like that where you're kind of fighting what their favorite color is and what the color they're actually looking for should be?
No, you know what's funny? I'm usually fighting for them to have color, to have more color. I mean, you and I have gone down the path of the beige, the gray world
Sad
we're living
beige,
in. Yeah, it's like the
sad
sad bit.
beige children.
Yeah. Yeah, literally. Those reels are just too real. And it's like, so I'm actually kind of usually the one pushing them towards color. But when it comes to certain types of colors, I do like to compromise. Like, we might not necessarily want to paint your whole room orange, but maybe we bring in that color with like accent pillows or artwork or, books or like I have an
Right.
orange book even like just above my head, but so like accents are huge when it comes to certain colors. And it's all about balance. If you want to paint your room orange, we can. We will find you a beautiful orange and then we will tone it down when it comes to the decor and furniture. So there's like
Right.
a lot of give and take, but again, in the world that we live in, the Johnson County beige world, I'm like always pushing that boundary. So, yeah,
Absolutely. On that subject, like beige, let's talk about that. Like, what does
yeah,
that color say? Color psychology, color theory. I want your take
that's
on
it.
beige.
So, I don't want to like misconstrue anything. Beige
Sure.
is a great color.
Yep.
All colors are great colors. There's a
Yep.
time and a place. There's also an amount, right? Like if you want your room to be bright beige, that's great. Like let's find you a beautiful beige paint color, but then let's pull in those accents. Let's like counteract that and complement it almost versus like the whole room being beige. But again, there's a time and place for that too. I mean, when I think of a beige or like really neutral room, I think spa. So like there is a benefit, to that if it's done in a what's the word I'm looking for? Intentional way. Like if it's done in an intentional way, I think is what's huge about it. Um, but what I find a lot of is people are picking that color because it's easy. It's what a lot of people do. It's not scary, it's safe. And and I think that's great too, but I'm doing what I do because I want to push those boundaries for people and really make them
Absolutely.
actually think about it and bring intention and consciousness into how they're creating their homes.
Absolutely. When we're talking about your BFA as well, so like we talked about color theory, what other sort of foundational principles do you use or apply to help you as an interior designer?
Oh, that's a great question. Oh, really making me think today.
That's the job, that's the goal right there.
I know, it's good. Really, okay, so color theory is a big one. And intentionality is huge. And when I say that, I mean, really thinking about what you want your space to be. And that comes with sourcing. So sourcing is like you purchasing all your artwork, where you find your furniture, your decor, all that. I'm big on sustainability and big on um, second life, if you will, call it thrifting, call it antiquing, whatever you want to call it, but or second hand, all of that. Like almost my whole home is that. So I think that's a huge thing for me, but that can get a little hard with clients when they are kind of wanting their home to be just done. Thrifting and antiquing or secondhand shopping, sourcing is something that takes time, right? But there's so much intention about it that it brings a certain energy into your home.
Absolutely. And that's something that you help your clients with as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're like, gosh, it'd be really good to have some accents here. That's something that I think I could get at Savers or Goodwill
Yeah.
or whatever. Let's just go
Yeah.
take a look, right? I mean, it's amazing. You know
Absolutely.
this, like it's unreal the things you can find in a
Yeah.
secondhand store. Also, Second Life, great video game from The Office. Huge fan. Remember Dwight Schrute getting into that.
Yes.
I had to check that thought, but now I'm letting it out because
Yeah, I
you were
love
done with
it.
your answer. So, I'm gonna do that.
Yeah,
Um,
it's great.
I think that's awesome. So yeah, on that sustainability piece, and
Hmm.
let's talk about that, right? Like people want their house to be done. When I think
Hmm.
of that, I think of trends, right? Trends in
Hmm.
design and all that. And it's funny, like you and I, we've been alive long enough to see certain trends come back, right? I my channel, KCBC, I've doubled down on the retro wave color schemes and you know, uh, bringing that to life because that's just what I like, right? Um,
Yeah.
but when we're talking about trends and we're talking about
Hmm.
like the convenience, like I
Hmm.
was thinking it before you said it too about beige. I'm like, man, it's a safe color. I think of all the times I've used beige paint. I've
Yeah.
literally painted rooms beige because it's like, oh yeah, this is easy. This I can have the things that I have and they'll go with this. But
Yeah.
on the subject of trends,
Yes.
okay, what do you think about design trends?
That's such a nuanced question, but it's a good one. I I have nothing against trends, but I do believe that they disempower people. And what I mean by that is trends make people feel like that's what they should be doing in their home because it's what everyone else is doing. And that's life. Like there's going to be trends through life. I definitely follow them. Trends are not a bad thing. Trends are a thing because like eh, you know, everyone loves it. They're a thing for a reason. But I think when it comes to your home, it's your space at the end of the day. And I feel like just following trends to design your whole home you're not giving yourself ownership of your space. And you're also most likely not going to get longevity out of your space. Like if you follow all of the trends all the way down to your light fixtures, your paint color, your furniture, everything, if you fill your house with what everything is going on right now, how are you going to feel about it in 5 to 10 years? Right? So that's why I always try to talk with people or with my clients about trends. And again, trends are great. They come back, they go. So that's why I'm always like, at the end of the day, what do you love? What do you want to be around? What do you want to see in your home? And I think a lot of people look at trends and say, oh, well, this is what I should be doing now because it's more modern. It's what's happening now. I don't want my things to look dated. Well, there's plenty of ways to not follow trends, but still make your house feel updated and modern and in the moment, in the times. And so I really try to give that power back to my clients and really try to push that envelope of I always am asking, what do you like? What do you want to be around? Because like I said, your
Absolutely.
physical environment affects everything. So if you're following the trends, you're just going to be chasing that all throughout the years. And nobody has time or money for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know what the other thing too, and I know not just from a design standpoint, but every time that I've gotten into trends, you know, especially when I was younger, right? Because I
Right.
always wanted to fit in. And then I realized
Absolutely.
in my 20s, like, I'm never going to fit in. I'm always going to be the square peg in the round hole and all that stuff. But like,
Absolutely.
when you're into trends, there also comes a level of dissatisfaction, I think,
Hmm.
in life, right? Like if we're
Absolutely.
chasing the trend and we're like, man, this feels
Hmm.
good. I got these, I got this stuff in my house. And the other thing we haven't talked about, we'll get into, I'm sure, is the purpose of use of rooms, right? Like gathering
Hmm.
rooms. And my wife and I were part of a micro church community where we gather in people's houses, and it's like,
Yeah.
that can be a point of insecurity too for people, like saying, oh, well, this isn't a place, like I feel really kind of
Yeah.
ashamed of whatever. But going on like the whole trend thing, it's like as soon as those trends change, it's like then you're going to be focusing on that new trend. And then all of a sudden, everything that was good yesterday
Hmm.
is all of a sudden not good enough. And I feel like too, that's the enemy
Yeah.
for a lot of us, is that dissatisfaction or that uncomfortability. And whereas if we started with how we felt in the beginning, and
Yeah.
I can see you trying as well, like you're getting into the psychology with people. What if you can't think of anything, that's fine. I know I'm putting you on the
Yeah.
spot. I got a habit of doing that to my guests here, but like
That's what you're there for.
I guess so, yeah. But have you ever had any moments where, there's people that they start to really get in touch with what they feel, how the home feels. You're probably too, I would imagine, when they get that step where they're ready to hire you or bring you in, or you do consultations, right? You come out and do a
Yeah.
consultation. You're the first person that's probably asked them how they feel, or
Yeah.
what they want to feel like. So, what's that been like with some of your clients when you're there unpacking that with them emotionally? Have you seen breakthroughs? Any pivotal moments where you've gotten to be there with them in their life when that happened?
Yeah. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen enough. I feel like a lot of people still just have this like, you know, external, internal battle, whatever you want to call it, with themselves and what they think they should be doing versus what they want to do. So I will say there is always that like push pull with clients and trying to steer them there. But I've definitely had moments with clients where they just feel so much more empowered. And so, like, you can really tell they honed in on what they want and how they feel in the space. And those moments are why I do what I do, because it's a reminder of how important this really is. And I just want people to see that. So I can't think of a specific situation, but I know I've definitely had those moments with clients where I just see like this, it's almost like a sense of relief and joy and happiness of like, oh, I can do that. And it's almost like they're looking at me for permission. I will suggest something and they're like, really? Like, I can do that? And I'm like, yeah, we can do whatever you want to do. And that's what I always tell my clients. Like, we can do whatever you want to do. And I think people forget that. Like, in your home, you can do whatever you want to do. It can be your playground, it can be your canvas, it can be whatever you want it to be. And I think a lot of people get so caught up on like resale value or trends,
Mm,
for that example, that they forget that they have ownership. And this is, that's not necessarily for people that just own their homes. Like you can do it for rentals as well. Like that remember at the end of the day, like that is your home. But especially for people that own their homes, you can do whatever you want to do. And so I just really tried to hone that in with my clients and whether that be trendy decisions, that's great, or it could be the wackiest decisions that you want to make. Like
absolutely.
that painted vent hood that I did. That's a very custom thing. Not a lot of people are looking to do that, but she has ownership over her home. And so that feels really good
Absolutely.
to be part of those types of projects.
Yeah, I'm feeling this come up on every episode in season 2, so I might as well go there too. But like that childlike wonder, I think that
Yeah,
you're talking about like
absolutely.
this is your home, you can do whatever you want. And I'm thinking of, my 7-year-old. She has been starting to realize like, we've decorated her room kind of cool like from the beginning. Like there was a point where I thought I was gonna scare the daylights out of her, but I found this like top of a lion head because she's very much like into lions and the attitude of the lion. And I call
Yeah.
my wife and my girls, I call them lionesses anyway, because I
Oh,
mean
I love
where I'm
that.
at on that whole
Yeah.
thing. And she
Your
started to
queendom.
say, yeah, absolutely. You know what I mean? Like, it just, it got me thinking what you were just saying about how she's like,
Yeah.
Daddy, could I paint a wall pink and paint a wall purple? And the attitude I have with that is like, of course you can.
Of course.
And we will
Yeah.
go in there and we'll paint it however you want. But then we become adults and
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I think everybody listening to this point, they probably think that I've got this kind of negative outlook on being an adult and adulting. Trust me, I don't. It's just I'm painfully aware of the fact that
Yeah.
like we're constantly trying to fit in. And
Yes.
another side tangent about trends, like if a trend comes to somebody and it got them to think of something that they never thought of before and it encourages more creative thought, that's another thing where trends can be actually a good thing too. Um,
Absolutely.
but again, context, right? That whole attitude of like coming in and like we can do whatever you want to do and giving them
Yeah.
that sort of license. And I think too, that's they're not just paying you to implement what they think they should do. They're paying you for your experience. You have seen things that have worked out.
Yes.
When we're talking too about like sustainability, I feel like we should go down there too. What are
Yeah.
some ways that, we can be more sustainable in our home design? You mentioned thrift stores. What else, I
Yeah.
guess?
Yeah. I mean, that's a good question. God, you just said so many things right there that I would like wanted to, touch on. You're so good at just like hitting all these points, like that
Yeah,
childlike wonder.
yeah,
I
we
think
can go
that's
there, whatever
huge.
you want to do.
No,
Yep.
you're good. I do want to go to the sustainability, but I just wanted to touch on the childlike wonder. Like my parents did such a good job of letting me have ownership over my home or my room. Like growing up, I think I painted it like twice in high school, and they just like really let me have ownership of that. And it is kind of funny like what happened. Why did we all kind of forget that we can do that? And I think it's just that comes back to the trends disempowering people is like people see the trends and are like, oh, this is what I should be doing versus when you were a kid, you didn't, I mean, there were trends, right? But like you also didn't give a fuck, quite frankly. Pardon my French, but you kind of just were like, no, I want to do what I want to do, right? At least that's how I was. I was
That's
I was
kind
a
of how I
stubborn
was
kid.
too.
Yeah.
And Stephanie.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all of our
Right?
friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Right.
all
Yeah.
birds of a feather flock together.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I just think that's huge. I think childlike wonder, I think we're all missing that in honestly all aspects of our life. And I definitely think it starts at the home as well. But kind of what you mentioned on sustainability, you asked how you can be more sustainable. One of the biggest things is we live in a consumer society. Like we are all about more, 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 trend after trend, which makes more turnover rate, which makes more waste. And, that's a whole other spiral that I could go down.
Yep.
But when it comes to design and sustainability, I think number one, the biggest thing is listening to what you want and how you feel. Because when you buy something that you absolutely love or like it brings you so much joy, you're more likely going to have that for a longer period of time versus if you buy something because it was in a magazine or, because your best friend bought it or whatnot. So again, I like don't want to be like trend bashing, but that does feed into like the sustainability factor of it all. When it comes to, okay, like I do want to redo my house, secondhand or, thrifting or vintage shopping or antiquing or all of that is giving something that already exists new life versus shopping at Pottery Barn or Nebraska Furniture Mart and those are great places too. I definitely source there for my clients. But when it comes to being more sustainable, the secondhand, all that is already using what is on this planet versus contributing to new manufacturation. Or I just make up a word, manufacture.
It seems
That
legit to me.
I don't manufacturation. We're just gonna add that to the
Manufacturation.
dictionary.
Yep. Like a Red Hot Chili Pepper song,
Absolutely, yeah,
manufacturation.
yeah. I hear it. I hear it.
Yep.
That's good. But yeah, so I hope that makes sense. Is
It
like
does.
you're not contributing to the new. We're using what is already on this planet, and like selfishly, it also brings less guilt for when you want to maybe get rid of something that you already purchased because it's like, okay, well, I gave this a second life for a while. Now I'll let someone else give it a second life or, so forth. So it's, we have so much on this planet that why don't we all just share it and move it around house to house? And
Gosh, I
yeah,
love that.
yeah,
I
creates a community,
absolutely
right?
love that. I there again, so much to unpack there.
Yeah.
I was getting into it with a friend recently talking about, the way furniture is manufactured these days. And
Hmm.
I think you're also aware, we're painfully aware that, they're putting, fire retardants and all kinds of things. Like there's
Mm.
actually code
Yes.
for manufacturing some of these products that requires that these things are put in. And if you buy older things, it's at least depends on what it is, but there's a lower likelihood. And I think too, like code
Yeah.
stuff is great. Like we learned
Yeah.
asbestos, right? Like was
Yeah.
a bad thing. Like we need to stop using that in building our living spaces,
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when we're talking about sustainability, I mean, my gosh, nothing feels cooler than that lamp that like you didn't know you
Yes.
needed and you found it at the thrift store.
Yeah.
Or like I remember, not design related, but like we wanted, Steph and I are musicians and we wanted a way for the kids to, learn how to play some musical notes, and they were starting to do it in school and stuff. And we went up to Savers and found this little cheesy battery powered little piano
I
that,
love that.
probably
Yeah.
one or two families of kids are beating the living piss out of this thing. And,
Yeah.
now it's my daughter's. And, when they were done
Right.
with it, guess what it did? It went, made it out on the garage sale. And, you know,
Yeah.
the Facebook, buy nothing
Mark.
or,
Oh, yeah. The free group.
like
Yeah. I'm a part of that.
it has never been easier to be sustainable, you
Right.
know,
Well, and
and
that's the
yeah,
thing. It's also more affordable for a lot of people. I mean, we don't even need to get into inflation, but even just
yep,
like the cost of goods is just absurd. And you kind of touched on like the materials when it comes to manufacturing.
yep,
Um, I just think there's a lack of quality control these days, and it does not match up with the price points in this day and
No,
age. Like if you want quality, you're using an arm and leg to get that. And I just don't think that's quite literally sustainable for a lot of people or even like available. And so I think that's where secondhand or like thrifting or buy nothing, like I'm not kidding you, like almost all my furniture is from like Facebook Marketplace or something like that, but they're
absolutely.
quality pieces. And I think a lot of people like forget that, oh, the person that bought the restoration hardware couch is probably selling it on Facebook for like a fraction of the price that they bought it for, but that couch is going to last you forever. And just kind of like, I just wanted to touch on that as the quality control. I just feel like people, what you're paying, you're not getting the quality for it. And I just think that's huge.
Absolutely. Well, going down the rabbit hole too of even like certain artisans, right, and the way they made things back in the day. I
Mhm.
think I'm probably going to butcher it, but hey, we live in the age of the internet, so anybody listening, you can fact check me. I'm totally fine with being wrong, but there is a type of furniture building that I think there's no one left now on the earth that knows how to do this. There's homes too in Japan. I think Japan is the one where they've got the nailless homes, like they knew how to
Oh,
build
yeah.
homes without nails. Like
It's
they
kind of
knew.
unbelievable.
We've lost that art, and it's crazy. Like
Yeah.
as you start to look at like some of the ancient civilizations, it's like they were more advanced than we are in different ways, right? Like when you see
Yeah.
Karnak in Egypt, there's rose granite structures, and it looks like somebody took a hot ice cream scoop and like made a bowl out of it. um
Yeah.
I'm going down a rabbit hole there, but like
No, I love
that's
it.
the other thing that as I've gotten more educated on the way things are made and where things are
Hmm.
made and who makes your things, that's another thing. Like I don't like wherever I can help it, obviously I don't like supporting things that are made unethically, right, or
Yeah.
require someone else to break their back to do it, kind of thing. But
Yeah.
when we're talking about sustainability, I think that's huge. That's great. I noticed too, you've got a plant in the background. Like
Oh,
what
yeah.
role do plants play in design as well? I want to ask you about that. Um, Feels like the right
Uh,
time to ask. So how do you
yeah.
do that?
The crazy plant lady.
I know I was gonna call you Plant Mother, Poison Ivy,
Oh,
the
I love
Batman
that. Yeah.
character.
Yeah.
But
No,
no,
that's
no,
so
yeah.
good.
What role do you use plants?
Yeah. So I'm like, it's so funny. Plants are like my solution for everything. I'm like, oh, you have an awkward corner in your house. Like, let's put a plant in it. Or like, oh, a tree would look really, yeah. You're like, okay, like a tree would look really good there. So, I mean, the other thing to think about, you talked about back in like ancient civilizations, like humans lived in nature and we have now gone like we could not be farther from that. And like don't get me wrong, I don't want to live in a yurt more than like a week or like in a cave or something like that. I
Yep.
would love to, but like I I like the comfort of my home. But I bring that up because plants are so huge when it comes to Uh, it gives you organic shape from like a visual standpoint. Green and like having a sense of nature in your home also brings like a sense of calmness and serenity. Um, and it also, they are air purifiers. They're natural air purifiers. So certain types of, I mean, most plants are, but certain types more than others actually purify your air for you naturally. And I think a lot of people forget where we came from. And I like that sounds very profound, but it's also a fact. And so I like to bring in plants because it also brings a sense of life, literal life into your space. So I think every room should have a like
I
just yeah.
just like mind blown, right? Like I remember learning, I think maybe in second or third grade, that plants breathe carbon dioxide and they're
Yeah.
responsible for all the oxygen that we breathe. But I've never heard somebody say plants are an air purifier for your room.
Yeah,
Like, and it's
they
like
are.
it's one of those duh moments, but it's like at the same time, like I'm looking
Right.
around and like this room in particular, I'm in the basement area, and that plant is obviously fake. Um,
Yeah.
but upstairs we've got, I think it's a similar type of vine that you have, or we have one of those
Uh-huh.
vines. I can't remember what it's called, but like we have let this thing take over our fireplace mantle. And
Uh-huh.
it's been growing for the last 2 or 3 years. And I think it's the one that Stephanie's the most proud of. She's just like, yep, I took care of that thing.
This
Because
is my baby.
she's got a habit of killing every succulent that she meets, right? It's like it's doomed.
Succulents are hard.
Okay, all right. Well, there's some validation there.
Yeah, succulents are hard.
Yeah. So, but I think about it, and I love this thing. At first, when and again, it's because I don't understand these things, right? But when she got it going, I was like, and then I started seeing it like go. And when you said organic shape, it occurred to me like that's what I love about it. And we move things out of the way, and it's grown around things, and it's like
Yeah.
they almost like make their way for us too,
Yeah.
that's super cool. We went through sustainability and we literally talked about going green with plants.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
what are some other, I guess, mediums? Like a medium is like it's paint, right?
Yeah.
Um, what other types of mediums do you use to, help people decorate their space?
I mean, all of them. Like there's paint, shape. So like the shape of your furniture or the shape of your decor or the shape of really anything in your space. But a big one for me is texture. So like you want you want a balance of softness, you want a balance of layers. Layers are huge as well. Like a room that has beautiful windows without curtains only goes so far, but as soon as you add those curtains, it softens the space and brings a layer to the space and also brings like a versatility of the space because now you can control the light that you let in. You can control your privacy. So like there's a lot of different things you can think about there. Uh, but layers is a huge one for me. Because it allows you to be versatile in your home. Like people make fun of me because I love throw pillows, but when your back is hurting and you're watching TV and you're like, damn, I wish I had a throw pillow for my lumbar support,
I was
I
just gonna
got you.
say that's what we do every time. I'm like, where's the
Yeah.
freaking pillow? Where's
Yeah.
to ask girls, Daddy, where's these lumbar pillow? I don't
Yeah.
say lumbar, but
Yeah. But yeah,
yeah,
it's true. And like people, this kind of gets into the use of our homes is like, I am a firm believer that your home should not be a museum or a gallery. Your home should be a home. You should be comfortable in your home. Like all your throw pillows, those are meant to be used. They're not just there to look pretty. And I think that's the other thing people forget is like, yes, the aesthetic is like what I'm here to help you achieve. But one step further is, okay, how can we make it beautiful and functional? Like
right.
form and function are more important together versus just one or the other. And I think that's just like something a lot of people forget as well when it comes to their homes.
You just reminded me. That's why I'm shaking my head because I'm like, damn it. You keep dropping the gems all throughout this conversation, and that's where I think too, like why I think everybody should hire you because you are reminding us all of what we've lost. Um, or what we can find, right? Like when you
Yeah.
just said form can be with function. They actually you don't have to choose one or the other. And I think we're all
Yeah.
like a lot of us are really prone to binary thought, like yes or no.
Yeah.
It's got to be this way or it's got to be this way. We can't just take the third path and say yes. There's a way
Yeah.
for both those things to happen. Um,
Yeah.
you know, Whenever I talk to people, I wonder how you stay energized for what you do.
That's
Who do you
good.
surround yourself with?
Yeah.
We can also talk about, Kansas City and then just the world in general of like, interior design. Like, who are some of your influencers? Who's in your tribe? Who do you network with? How
Yeah.
do you stay sharp and motivated and recharged for what you do?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for saying that people should hire me. I appreciate that because you
Yep.
see why I do what I do. I just appreciate
Yep.
you seeing me
Yep.
and also seeing my message of like I'm trying to like empower people when it comes to their home, and that's just like the biggest thing when it comes down to it. As
Absolutely.
far as my network, I mean, as social or outgoing as I seem, I do recharge a lot by myself. But that's why referral madness is huge because it's this set thing. It's this network that's there. They're people of all walks of life, and I think that's also so important just when it comes to life in general is yeah, we all have our tribe and I'm sure we all have different backgrounds, but at the end of the day, like you said, what was the phrase you just said about a feather?
Oh yeah,
Like,
birds of a feather flock together.
okay, birds of a feather. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
real
so
knows
you're
real.
gonna,
We could do all the
oh
analogies.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So like your close tribe, you're all gonna have like generally think similarly. But
Mhm.
that's why I like networking and getting out and meeting new people is because you push those boundaries.
Right.
I have, attended design events around Kansas City and I've met some amazing designers through that where we're able to kind of like create a community and talk about more of like the back end stuff of being a designer. um, I have a good friend, and she owns her own interior design business, Storied Interiors, and her and I think very similarly when it comes to design and kind of that slow design, thoughtful design. And I think that's been huge for me because it's it it can be hard to find in the design world. Um, I mean, it's like anything, right? When you go quote unquote mainstream, you're going to get all those people that are thinking the same. And it's, well, if I don't think that way, how can I even, you know, communicate or relate to you? It can only go so far. Um, so that's kind of a big one. One of my biggest influences is actually not an interior designer. Her name is Fattel. Yeah, Ingrid Fattel. And she's the author of my favorite book, Joyful. And she's not an interior designer, but I guess you can say she kind of is because so in that book she explores joy and how we see it and experience it in our world and how color, shape, all of that plays into joy and how we feel. And so she goes into the specifics of certain things that, can make you feel like rounded objects can feel more joyful than harsh lined objects or so forth. And it goes back to that childlike wonder as well. But she like has traveled the whole world reviewing and experiencing these like insane interiors that I never would have even heard of or known about. Like there's these apartments in Japan that are for sensory exploration. Like the floors are like wavy and bumpy and like textured walls and it's really funky, but it's a way to like get your sensories back into like even state and like makes you aware of your body. So she talks about a lot of the stuff like that and she's so great and just really leads with happiness and joy. And that's what I try to lead with, from my day to day and especially when it comes to interior design. So yeah, but most of my influences are more artists or honestly thrifters. There's like a whole society or community, if you will, on the internet that like lives and breathes thrifting and creativity and yeah, all that fun stuff. I
That's
hope that answered your
amazing.
question. Kind of
Yeah,
rambled
for
there.
sure, for sure. And I tend to war with technology, like
Oh
or
yeah.
talk, especially when we're talking. Again, I fall back into that binary thought system of, like I agree with you. Like we've lost our connection with the wilderness, and that's
Hmm.
where we all came from, right? And so, how are cities built? They're built like,
Hmm.
and I thought of Japan.
Hmm.
Haven't been there, known plenty of people, and I've known guys in bands that toured there and stuff. And the fact that there's that sensory stuff that is coming up there as well, I think, is people finding ways to say, okay, now that we've got all this heavy
Hmm.
urban developed environment, how do we bring some of the things that people need to help with their emotional and mental wellness, which then feeds all the other wellnesses.
Yeah.
um So
Yeah.
bringing that in, that's really cool. And it's also too, like when you talked about the wavy floor, it's like, you
Yeah.
know, gosh, like here in the States, like all I think of is we've either got, finished concrete, we got carpet, we got
Yeah.
laminate. I don't know that I could make my floor all wavy, right? Or what would
Yeah.
I do that in? Like, do I have a sensory room? Like, but
Right.
again, like going back to Childlike Wonder, like I love how
Yeah.
she has helped people do that. Say, what if the floor, what if every time your foot touched the floor, and then getting into anatomy, like what we know about the feet, the feet
Right.
are like this biomechanical wonder that we have right at our
Yeah.
literally
Oh,
our foundation
absolutely.
when we walk. So no, I love that about how you network. One of your favorite influencers is not from design. I think that's important too. Like when we get out of our profession or our mindset, we can get
Yeah.
inspired from other places. What else do you do to keep yourself sane? We talked about people, like what types of hobbies are helpful for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Really cute of you to think that I'm sane. I appreciate that. Oh,
Well,
I
I guess,
love that.
yeah, to keep you sane, yes, that assumes that you
No,
are
I'm just,
sane,
yeah.
which you're not. You just
No, I
clarified.
love it. We're all mad, but that's
Yeah,
okay.
we are for sure, for sure.
No,
All
no,
right,
that's a good question. I mean, the biggest thing
yeah,
for me is traveling. I love to travel. Uh, whether it's getting back in nature, like seeing different landscapes, seeing different cities. I just think experiencing new things is huge when it comes to just life in general, and it keeps you it it keeps you motivated, it keeps you interested, it almost like brings back that childlike wonder when come into exploring new things. So traveling's huge for me. I love to read. I love to watch Netflix. I love TV and movies. I love just like hanging out with friends. Like I love my slow days. I think that's like the biggest thing for me is uh, you know, being able to take each hour however I want to take it, whether it's I'm going to take a nap for a couple hours today, or I'm going to read my book, or I'm going to go for a walk. I think just, taking a moment to be intentional is something that really brings me back to sanity because it's so easy to get wrapped into the world of social media or specifically thinking about business and entrepreneurship. Like I would not classify myself as an entrepreneur, but it's easy for me to get sucked into trying to run my business like I think I'm supposed to run my business versus what actually makes sense for me. um and I just listened to the episode. Gosh, I don't remember his name. He has sprinkle some salt.
Bump Jonas.
Yes, thank you, thank you. I just listened to that episode and just everything he said just resonated so heavy with me because I am a creative, but that doesn't mean I can't do XYZ. But it also doesn't mean I have to do XYZ the way everyone else is doing XYZ. And I think that is like huge for me when it comes to running a business and being a designer and being an artist is I really try to step back with myself, not only with my clients and say, how do I feel about this? Like, does this align with me and who I am as a person, really, is what it comes down
Absolutely.
to. So,
Yeah. First off, I know Bump will really appreciate you recognizing that with him.
yeah,
He's a deep dude. He's a
yeah,
beautiful person.
it's
Um,
great.
and I really enjoyed that's a conversation too that I've remembered, and I know that I'll go back and listen to every once in a while. There's a lot of stuff that he was able to tap into on that episode in that moment, I think. And that's the beauty about what we do and having these conversations is that these conversations are different every time. We're always going to get something
Mhm.
new out of that. And I was thinking about it, when you were saying I don't classify myself as an entrepreneur, like I love that you are drawing that line in the sand as well.
Mhm.
There's a lot of assumptions with that, and then there's like with that term, And then,
Yeah.
thinking about that, because this is another thing that we've talked about on the show. I don't want to say that art and business are opposed to one another, because that then says like we can have one without the other. We do have to focus on costs and things like that and operations.
Yeah.
How have you as an artist approached that stuff? And like you said, I don't consider myself an entrepreneur. And I love how you said, I need to think about how I think I should run my business and how
Yeah.
my business should actually be run by me, taking the advice of what's worked or hasn't worked for other people. But you made this connection of like, it's my thing. I get to choose.
Yeah.
So what's that journey been like? We could also talk where you found inspiration as an artist to like get some of those business principles or leverage your
Yeah.
skill and monetize
That's
too.
that's a great question. And I feel like I'm still asking myself that when it comes to the
Yep.
business side of it. Like my processes and systems are I do not run a tight ship when it comes to that. I would like to. I just feel like my brain and how I like energetically like work doesn't align with creating that. So that's something that maybe you and I should talk about with Vicariats or video. Like I feel like we
Sure.
could help each other out there. But
Right.
so when it comes to like that part of it, um, I really just tried to keep a steady flow and an open and honest conversation with my clients. I think the hardest thing too that I run into is I do not function on a 9 to 5, 5 days a week, like mentality. Like I literally don't work that way. And I know I'm not alone here. I know many other people can relate to this, but that causes a challenge because the contractors or the clients that I'm working with do function on that 9 to 5, 5 days a week. So something that I've really honed in on and something that I'm actually like really proud of myself is setting like hard set boundaries and schedules for myself. And obviously I'm not perfect. There's days that I like go, go, go. I have meeting after meeting. But then by the end of the day, I am like not a human and I'm not who I'm supposed to be and I'm drained like on a creative aspect. So I think like the biggest thing for me is setting boundaries and being intentional about the hours that I'm working. And I think that also creates a problem with my systems is because, well, if I have to be really intentional about my hours, okay, I have to have really good systems. So that's something I'm still working on, still processing. I'm not a big
Right.
technology person. I am a pen to paper gal. So that's a journey that I think I will honestly forever be on.
Right. Right.
So I just try to be in the moment. I'm very organized, type A when it comes to that. So I think that's why I'm able to kind of pull it off.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, that's a big thing. And I think too, like, all of the artists and creatives that run businesses, it definitely feels like that's a constant tension,
Yeah.
with us all. And, I mean, me, like I'm a process guy, and I've made systems like even with like editing these podcasts and the way I do artwork now. And, I
Yeah.
learned a lot from that first season, of like, man, I'm busting my ass. It was like 20 or 30 hours an episode, and I knew it was
Wow.
like, this is not sustainable. I need to find
Yeah.
ways to do this differently. But that tension of like, gosh, if I could have it my way, I'd just show up like, some of these bigger podcasters just sit down in the chair and talk, and then, everybody else would
Yeah.
mix and do the stuff, but like I do the
Yeah.
things now. And I've really had to think about my expectations too. When you put your heart and soul in something, like I know you absolutely do. How has it been with your strategy, like on your social media? I've been loving how, you also make sure that you are in the pictures.
Mhm.
You had one of your peers take the video of you painting the hoods. It
Yeah.
shows that you're in there. That's a whole other element too, because you're the marketing person too. What kind of tips would you have for people that are artists? I feel like there's a lot of them out there. They don't want to show themselves. They just want to show what they
Yeah.
did, you know?
Yeah.
And that's like a
I'm
whole
definitely
other
one of
thing.
those. So
Well, man,
I
you're
also
doing good at showing us who you are, like, but
thank
yeah,
you.
like
I
what's that?
also don't have a strategy as much as that. Like, I think also have a constant battle with social media, and I've tried, scheduling so that it's less stressful.
Mm,
I've even hired someone, and that was great. But when I hired someone, it wasn't feeling authentic, which is like a big thing for me. So then I took back, it was she was great. It was a great working relationship. Lauren Heller with Twin Mom CEO. If you need,
yeah,
I'll shout her out. She was fantastic, but it
absolutely.
just didn't align, for me from a media standpoint. So I think my biggest advice is just like, as cheesy as it sounds, is just be real and be you and be authentic. And I think that when you do that, you show up exactly how you need to show up, and you'll also attract the people that you need to attract. And I think that that's
Absolutely.
something that I'm like still striving for. Because, you made a comment about how do I get bigger? How do I get that constant flow of income? Yada, yada, yada. And like those are things I think about, but I more so think about how do I get my ideal client that aligns with me and who I am and how I show up, not only in design, but also in this world. And I think that is something I strive more for than growing an empire. Like
Hell
the,
yeah.
right? Like obviously I would love to be making more money, but like I'm comfortable. I'm paying my bills. I have ownership over my day-to-day life. But something I'm always striving for is getting those clients that align with, you know, those pretty much everything we've talked about. Like,
Yeah.
if you
I
think that way, I would love to work with you.
I
So,
was just gonna say you've made it very clear what your values are, what your core values. I call them immutable laws, and I
yeah.
think honestly for you they are immutable laws because you're not gonna betray who you are. And we know too, like I think there's that philosophy from EOS, the entrepreneurial operating system guys. They say, your core values should not be aspirational. They should be discovered. Like they
Mm.
already exist in you, or if you have a company, in your company, and your
Yeah.
ideal clients, they are going to value sustainability,
Hmm.
artistry, textures,
Hmm.
challenging themselves so that when they find you, they're like, Emily, where the hell have you been my whole life? Right. And
Yeah.
you're like, client, where the hell have you been my
I know.
whole business?
I do think that. I'm like, wow, okay. I needed you. I need like 10 of you a year, and I'll be living my best life, serving the
Absolutely.
people I need to serve.
Absolutely. So yeah, in closing, first off, if there's anything we didn't talk about that you feel like, man, I'm inspired to say this, I'd like to know that. And then, in closing, we're going to make sure all of your socials are linked here, how people
Yeah.
can get in touch with you. Was there anything that we didn't cover in this conversation you want to make sure you get out there in this episode?
I don't think so. I think we covered pretty much everything under the sun. I
Sure.
think the biggest thing is I just really want to hone in on empowerment and the kind of like you said, the childlike wonder. I just want people to feel confident to do what they want in their space. And it does not have to be hard. It does not have to be unattainable. Anything is possible, if you put your mind to it. So I think that's just like the biggest thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Emily Franchett, it has been such an honor having you on this show. Exactly what I thought this conversation was going to be. Epic gems. I got a lot of, I'm going to have a problem finding and picking the the reels to get out. Great problem to have, but my goodness, so proud to know you and just appreciate, the influence you've had with me and Stephanie and just you just being in our tribe of influencers. It's such an honor to know you and support ENF's design studio.
Yeah, honestly, like thank you and your energy.
100%.
Like you are someone that makes people feel comfortable, confident, and honestly profound. I'm like, I'll say something and you're like, yes. And I'm like, ooh, that was good. That hit. So I
Heck
just
yeah.
appreciate you and bringing me on here and sharing who I am. And yeah, just grateful.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. You heard it from Emily. Go out, follow, support her. I hope that everybody will be inspired by what we've talked about today. Really, really profound conversation here. So appreciate y'all. Thank you for your support.